I'm interviewing today Lori Acevedo, who found her soulmate. She's a meet to marry success story, a mother, single mom of two beautiful kids, ages 16 and 13. And she lives in Austin, Texas. She's an entrepreneur. And I think you're all really going to relate to her so well. So, Lori, thank you so much for joining me. I so appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yay, me too. Okay, Lori, so let's start at the beginning. When we first connected, what was going on for you in your love life? What was that like? I think you were ending a relationship, right?
Yeah, a bad relationship. I was married. I had remarried. So it was my second marriage, and that was ending. He was, it just was never a good fit, but he also just wasn't super nice to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I just felt really stuck. But then finally, and I should say it's going to sound weird, but thankfully he
Yeah.
had an affair. And that was where I drew the line. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, what am I doing with this guy? I mean, this is stupid. And so I kicked him out. So that was,
Right.
then I was really, I didn't want to be with him anymore. But then I was a little like, oh my gosh, am I ever going to find somebody? I keep making these horrible choices.
Horrible choices. Everyone here listening can relate to horrible choices, and so can I. Totally. So it was going on for a long time. Yeah. And so then we came together. And what was it that had you finally decide, I got to figure this out. I need some help.
I just couldn't figure out, like, I knew I was choosing the wrong people, but I didn't know why. I mean, I kind of had an idea, but I still didn't really know why. And then even if I did know exactly why, I didn't know how to not choose the right people anymore. Right. And I honestly, like, I was just like, I'm not going to be able to, I wouldn't even allow myself to date because I was too afraid of making a bad choice again. And I thought, that's dumb. I mean, you know, at my age, I'm 50, I just turned 53 a couple of days ago, and I've got kids, and I don't want to be alone, but I'm also too worried to make a poor choice. And so at that point, I was like, I really just need to figure this out because I don't want to be in this limbo, and I don't want to be alone, but I don't want to do the wrong thing again.
Right. And that's how most people are feeling. You know that you deserve love, you know that you want it, but it's worse to be in another bad relationship for sure.
Mhm.
So yeah. And everyone, look at Lori. She's beautiful. She's an entrepreneur. She's a mom. She's also, what's interesting about Lori, she works out, right? That's
Mhm.
an interesting thing. Yeah, definitely. So super active. So, okay, so let's fast forward. So you come into the program, and what was your we don't have to go into the gory details, but what was the highlight for you that made there were many obvious changes, but what was the big thing that you discovered that was getting in your way?
I discovered, well, the biggest thing was I was getting in my way. And I realized, which I kind of knew, right? Because I was like, okay, I'm making bad choices. But I realized two things. One is that I was getting in my own way. And then we did, I think it was Bye Bye Blind Spots, and just the work leading up to that. And I realized that it was coming from a place that I didn't know, that, I just didn't feel like I was worthy. And I had to know, because I'm a really confident, or I think confident person, and I'm outgoing and I'm successful, I mean, not like ridiculously successful. I mean, like, I have my own business, and then I've been an executive. So it was kind of like, wait a second. What do you mean I'm not worthy? Of course I'm worthy. In my head, I was like, of course I'm worthy, but I wasn't acting that way in relationships. And it was just such a cognitive dissonance, right? I was,
Right.
the way I was acting was not lining up with what I thought I should be acting like, or, the choices I was making. So that was a big, huge aha for me. And then kind of going back and realizing when we did that work of where it was coming from with my parents, and how I had really, like, I mean, my childhood was fine, right?
Right. Right.
And and it was one of those things where I realized, like, oh wait, not like it was horrible. My parents were horrible. They weren't at all, but I
Right.
glossed over it a lot.
That's right.
And then it started to really make sense how I was just repeating the same thing over and over again. And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it.
Exactly. So unlike therapy, where maybe we talk about things or we say, I'm worthy. Wait a minute, but if I'm so worthy, then why is my love life not reflective of worthiness? Why am I making bad choices? That's right. So it is, that's a great way to put it. It is like cognitive dissonance, and
Mhm.
there's a major incongruence, right, within ourselves, head and heart. And
Mhm.
how was that like when we look at your life practically, two marriages, an ex that cheated on you, like how is that affecting you?
In my life now, or
No, then, back
oh,
then.
then,
Oh,
oh, I just was like, it for well, my first husband cheated on me too. So then it was kind of like, oh my God, we have a theme. Like that
we
is
have a theme. We have a pattern here.
not good. That is not good. And it wasn't like, they're like these like amazing guys. Like, if anything, people thought, like when we were breaking up and people gossip, they thought I was the one cheating on them, you know.
Right. Right.
And I'm like, no. And they're like, wait, you're the
No.
catch. I'm like, I know. So it just made me feel like I actually didn't take it personally. Like at first I did, like, what was wrong with me? But then I'm
Right.
like, no, no, it's not me. Like they're the wrong person, but I participated.
Right. And how many years was each marriage?
The first one was 12 years.
12 years.
And the second one was 3 years. I
Right.
think. Yeah, I came up on
So
three.
for everyone watching, look at Lori. She's pretty amazing. She's beautiful. She's smart. She's successful. She's a mom. She's a giver. We kept locked up. We kept locked and we don't see the pattern. Do you notice how it affected your kids back then?
Yeah, I think they just realized because I just wasn't happy, and it just wasn't a great situation. So I just did my own thing. We weren't connected,
Right.
right? It wasn't a relationship that was of deep connection. And that's what I wanted. But
Right.
I wasn't in a relationship that either one of us were actually even capable of that. So that was, I think, the biggest thing. And, they were younger, but still it made an impression. Um,
Of
and I
course.
think they noticed it more in the second marriage because, I just wasn't going to put up with it, you
No
know.
way. No
So
way.
they saw that, which, if anything good came out, a lot of things good came out of it, but one is they got to see me say, like, I'm not going to put up with this, you know.
Right. That's right. That's right. Right. And then, so now we fast forward, where we discovered all these things that were getting in her way from her past that we cleared up. And then things changed. Then you learned about empowered dating.
Mhm.
So tell us so now that we're fast forwarding to the fun stuff. So tell us what happened next and where your life is, what happened next.
Well,
So
once I realized, like I said, you can't unsee it.
can't unsee it.
It was actually like, and you told me this, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna trust the process. It flipped like overnight. Like once I realized it, it was so much easier to change like I didn't see people the same way.
Right, right, right.
You know?
Everything changes. Yeah. Mhm.
Everything changed. And so it was easier to kind of decide, like kind of determine, like, is that a good like, is that a person that I'd want to be with? And I had the confidence to like just go through all the questions,
Right, right.
know, and get that all out up front, because before I didn't have the confidence in the relationship to ask the questions because I just wanted them to like me. Right.
That's right. Another common theme. We're chosen. We're chosen. So right.
Mhm.
So as an empowered dater and going through the process, right? You learn
Yeah.
what you need in a relationship, right?
Mhm. And the courage to speak up. So, and ask the question. So you had the mantras, like the two that really spoke to me most. One is you can't say the wrong thing to the right person.
So
I can't
true.
even tell you, Barry, how many times I say that a day, and especially in the beginning. And then the second thing was, I am the prize,
That's right.
and actually believing that
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
accepting the love, because I realized, like, it was like I kept choosing people that weren't that didn't see me, like they loved me, but I not in the way I wanted to have be loved. And then I couldn't. Then I realized once I started dating, and then I found Christopher, my soulmate. He was just all in and perfect, right? And is perfect. But I realized that I had never had that before. And I kind of hit a little bit of a block. So I was like, here it is, it's all here. Why am I so kind of freaked out? And I realized, oh my gosh, I've never had this before. And I don't like, it's so much love. I don't know how to accept the love. And I'm like, that's so messed up. Like so messed up.
Right, right. So it's like a theme. It's like a block. It's like a blind spot. So blind. That's right. So that's so exciting.
Yeah. But I realized because I'd done the work, I knew what was happening. And so I was able to, because I developed the tools, I knew what to do. So, and I had my mantra of you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. So I talked to him about it.
That's right.
It was a huge deal. And then that just brought us closer. So I don't know, just opened up a lot of ways for me to be able to express myself and ask for what I want.
That's right. And look what a gorgeous couple they are. Well, you've done so many things with him. So tell us, so how did you meet? That's what everybody wants to know.
We actually reconnected. So our story is a little, I don't know how unique it is,
It's
really.
great.
But we met in 1994 at Jazz Fest in New Orleans. And I lived in LA and he lived in New York. And we were just friends. It was a big group of my friends and he had his friend. And, we just all started hanging out. We're in our 20s. And we became friends and we would talk all the time on the phone. And he would come out and visit me at the beach because he had clients out there. And so for about 2-3 years, he would come out and visit every, couple times a year. And it was great, but nothing ever happened, not even a kiss. And so I just thought we were friends.
Yeah. And that was what, 30 years? Yeah.
Yeah, almost 30 years.
30 years
so then fast forward, he, starts dating people. I was dating people, and I even met his now ex-wife, but when they met. So we stayed in contact over the years, and I'd hear from him, every couple of years. And then he had messaged me actually weirdly right before I got married the second time, a couple weeks before. And interestingly enough, it was just kind of hi, I might be in your area. I'm like, great, it would be great to see you. I didn't mention at all that I was getting married because, it was interesting because he was kind of always, to me, I always held a torch from him. He was the one that got away.
Yes.
But nothing ever happened. There was no reason to ever really believe that other than just my fantasy. And then I got, broke up. And just a few weeks after that, he messaged me again. So it'd been 3 years later. And at that point, we figured out we were both single and all of that. And so we just reconnected. We had a really, really, really long phone conversation. And in that conversation, I asked all the questions. They just kind of worked themselves in, which I guess was a little bit easier because I knew him and I was already comfortable with them. But we still hadn't talked or anything in years, and I hadn't seen him in probably 25 years. So then he came into town, and even though I kind of broke the rules a little bit, but I was pretty good because he comes into town. I hadn't seen him in 25 years, so I was really nervous but excited. And I picked him up and I was like, oh my gosh, he's still really handsome and all these things. And but in my house, he stayed at my house, but he stayed on a totally different floor in a totally different place. Nothing happened at all. And I thought, well, maybe we're just still friends.
Right.
And then but we just had such a strong connection. We would sit up and talk and hang out. And then on the last night we went to dinner. He was doing his business, so I met him out because he was at a hotel. We went out to dinner and had we were at dinner for 4.5 hours. And they didn't kick us out, which was surprising here in Austin, because we were just so into it. And at the end of that dinner, he finally kissed me.
Are
you kidding? It took 28 years, but it was the right time.
It was the right time. And this was before actually that you'd started dating camp and kind of learned how we do it.
Yeah.
So you see, everyone, we have a process for empowered dating. And this was even before, because had you been, you would have really, you would have asked, shared and asked.
Yeah,
Well,
but I
no,
had kind of done that before the date.
yeah,
And then, but then I kind of fell back into the share and ask. That's when I called him like, well, he doesn't live here. So he went back to New York. And so then we had 2 months, like 6 weeks of, I mean, we talked almost every day.
yeah.
And then we had a lot of the share and ask. So by the time I saw him the next time, we had really covered a lot of ground, a lot of ground.
That's right. So imagine had you not done the program and not cleared yourself up and not gotten so open and ready and new perspective. Sometimes we miss love. We just miss the right one because
Mhm.
we're not clear. We're
Well, I
not.
think he and I talked a lot about that. Like, how come we never, because we clearly liked each other. I went back, I found old pictures from the night, like real photographs. And all of them were always hugging and we're always, it's like you'd look at it and you would think he was my boyfriend, but we weren't.
Oh,
And, we talked a lot about that. And I thought, and we both kind of came to the same conclusion. We just weren't ready. And I had, the feelings that I had about unworthiness and love and all, like it was the same thing. Like it was the guys that I married were the same guys I was dating back then. It was the same theme over and over again. And so I wasn't ready for him, and he wasn't ready for me, honestly. But, because we both learned and, had the tools and I was able to, one of the big things that you did with me too was being able to have closure on that past relationship. And that
right.
was really, I'm not gonna lie, a little gut wrenching, but so worth it because then it was like, that's over. There's no going back on that.
That's right.
You
That's
know,
right. Because sometimes people will say to me, are there good men out there? Is my soulmate out there? Does he exist? Yeah. But on the other side of these blocks that we can't see, Lori certainly didn't see it. And
Mhm,
she was still like you're talking about completion. There was an
mhm,
incompletion because a lot of times we're addicted to what's not good for us. We
mhm.
don't know why. So if we're
Yeah,
addicted to what's not good, we
exactly.
keep attracting that. And then we don't have the inner space for healthy love. But Lori,
Mhm,
you got really courageous. You
mhm.
got courageous and you showed up. You did the work.
I would hear your words in my ears whenever I was like, even had any kind of like, well, that kind of feeling. I'd hear you say, you're like, you're settling for crumbs. And I'm like, right, I want the sandwich. Like, I don't want the crumbs. I want the sandwich. I want the whole thing,
I
you
want the
know?
whole thing.
Yeah.
That's
When
right.
I would hear that, I think you're right. You're worth it. You don't settle for crumbs.
You don't settle for crumbs. And again, this is not about being a good person. This is not about being thin enough in the right place. It look at Lori, she's gorgeous, she's beautiful, she's smart, but she had these blind spots that she couldn't see. So it's really about major congruence. So wow, and how do your kids feel? How are they that you're now
Um,
have a soulmate?
Oh, they love it, and they love
Oh,
him, and they also I think what they love most is that I'm happy,
right, of
and they
course.
can they can really see the difference, like,
Oh,
I mean, I'm a generally happy person, not like I ever, but they can see the authenticity in the relationship, I
yeah.
think, and just in how I am acting, like, before it would be hard because we would be disagreeing or something, some drama was happening. And I didn't want my kids to feel that or see, but they sense it, even when you're
Course.
acting like everything's fine or even talking, like saying everything's off. I'm not going to go into gory details. And you have to keep it together for them, right? Because they need to feel like everything's okay.
Right.
That was just a stressful way to live.
Yeah.
And,
Oh,
then it kind of became a habit and that was even worse. And now I just don't, I know like I'm never going to live that way again,
never,
ever,
never.
because I'm not with a person who would ever, we would never treat each other that way. And I'm
Yeah,
100% certain of that. Like it wouldn't happen.
it would just never happen because you change. You become integrated. You own your value. Not fake own my value, because a lot of people say, no, no, I know I'm valuable. I know all this, but there's no congruence.
It was, and I didn't even know that it was incongruent.
Ah,
That was the thing, is like in my head, it was there and I would believed it, but it wasn't
Right.
in my heart. And that's what was happening. And I didn't realize that. And then once it was pointed out, I was like, oh, well, I want to fix it. And even when you're to your point about therapy, yeah, I went to therapy and then I would say, okay, now what do I do? Right. I'm like, I'm a quick learner. I'm a quick study. You
What do I
pointed it out.
do?
I got it. I'm not going to do that anymore. But what do I do now? And they're like, you just, I'm like, but that's
Just
not
just get
that's
out.
not hanging.
That's what drove me crazy too about therapy. It's like, okay, but now
Yeah.
what?
And I mean, it was good for what it was at the time. Like it got me out of it was hard going through my first divorce and with little kids, but then when they're older, she would agree with me, like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, now we both agree what's going on, but now what do I do?
Now what? Right. It's like you go and it's comforting and reassuring, but what do I do?
Yeah.
How do I do it? I don't know. How do I set a future focus plan? I don't know. That's not my training.
Yeah.
So right. So we all need something very different, future focused, action steps, clear the barriers,
Yeah.
understand cognitively, like all these pieces have to come together and then you find your soulmate. If
Yeah.
not, you miss them.
And that's, I think what I even said this to you, like in one of our first conversations, I was
Yeah.
like, I'm tired of wasting my time. Like I'm tired of trial and error.
Oh,
That was the thing. And I was just frustrated. I'm like, there has to be a way to do this. I want to know what the way is. Like you talk about like working out, right?
right.
Like I go to the people who know how to do it so they can tell me what to do so I don't have to bumble around and waste my time. I want to see the results. Like I don't
Right.
want to do the learning part. Like just tell me and then I'll go and do it.
So why should love be any different? Why should
Mhm.
we bumble around? People think I need to figure it out for myself. How? How? We
I've
can't.
told so many people like, because they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you found him so fast. And it seems like he's so great. I'm like, I know. I'm like, I listened to Barry. I'm like, congratulations. I feel like, I was open and ready, and it probably would not have worked out if I wasn't open and ready.
That's right.
It
That's the
wouldn't have, because there's been like little things that have come up. I'm like, oh, that's that old thing, you know,
ah
and I see it and I'm like, okay, I gotta like, kind of work my way through it with the tools that you gave me, of like, okay, is that really a thing? Like, I can't remember the name of the exercise that you go through, where you,
challenge your thinking.
yes, challenge your thinking. I'm like, what is it? But yeah, I love that because I can, I can do it in my head, but it's so much better to write it out
That's
because then it's like I can reread it like as a like the person giving myself advice.
exactly. We become super empowered. You become your own coach, your own therapist. You understand where we cause suffering, where
Mhm.
suffering is not needed from the past.
It was
That's
also great too to realize that like I'm not the only one like that feels this way.
that's right.
Like I mean, I have lots of friends who not lots, but like some of my friends who are divorced felt, they'll feel like they can't meet anyone and they make the same mistakes over and over again. And I felt that way too. But then the whole when you dig deeper and the whole, not worthy, and I mean, that's like stuff where I'm not going to sit around and chat with my friends about that. Like, it's not going to come out that way usually, right?
That's right.
And now that I know that, I have interesting conversations with them because I'm like, yeah, I realized what was happening. They're like, how'd you figure that out? And I said, I went to Barry. I'm like,
I
I
did it
don't know. It was magical. You think, I mean, it sounds like crazy, but I figured it out. Once I knew it, it was fine.
right. Because, like you said, you can't undo it. And even if we know we have unworthiness, we have to solve it. We have to transcend it. We have to do the work.
Yeah.
And that work happens quickly. It really does, right? On
Oh,
this.
I spent like weekends, like I wanted to fast track. So I was like, all weekend, I'd get into all the work. And it was really thought provoking. And I really did enjoy it, even though, like I said, it was a little gut wrenching, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Um, there were definitely a lot of tears involved, but in a good, like I just felt like it was a good thing though, because it wasn't tears like I'm so sad for myself. It was more like tears like I started feeling like as I was working through it, I started feeling like so sad for that girl I was,
Right.
you know?
Right.
But I
Yeah,
was so happy that I wasn't her anymore. And so I started moving into this other space, of I could look back and it was like a different person that was still me, right? So I
that's
didn't look
right.
back like ashamed of that person. It was just like, oh wow, I'm a different person now.
Right, you're in a different identity. You're in a different identity, and you're actually seeing that as an observer, and you have total access to it. Right.
And
It's definitely life changing and you can't unsee
you
it.
can't unsee it. But then it transcended my relationship. Like it was beyond that. Like, so I went back. So I was, doing consulting and, working with these entrepreneurs and doing all this stuff. But I was actually kind of settling a little bit, right?
Even at work.
Yeah, I was. I was frustrated because I felt like I wasn't living my up to my full potential because
Right.
I was scared. And I'm like, wait, what am I doing? Like, why am I selling myself short? Crumbs, right?
Crumbs.
Crumbs. And so I kind of went through a similar exercise as we had like okay, where's that coming from? I'm like, this is the same thing. Why am I doing the
Same
same thing
thing.
at work? And next thing you know, because I opened it all up, literally like a week later, I get a phone call from a former company and they're like, that thing, because they had actually laid me off back in the day, not for performance, but it was like
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but that, when you feel unworthy, like that really puts like nails in the coffin there for you. And so
Totally.
I think I'd been working through that. So they call me back and they're like, hey, that thing you did, we dismantled it. We need you to come back and do that again. And it was like building up this department. And I thought, well, isn't this so interesting that I had this like diversion from my path? And it was kind of, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, if I can say it was kind of a shit show, right? It
Yeah,
was like,
totally.
it
Yeah.
was low, it was a mucky mess.
Yes.
And I emerged, right? Kind of feel like, oh, the phoenix from the ashes kind of thing. And here we go, full circle back to where I was, but now as a different person, and that whole situation is different because I walked in and I'm like,
Confident.
can't say the wrong thing to the wrong boss or to the right
That's
boss, right? You can't say
right.
the wrong thing. And I'm not going to settle for crumbs. And so I was already, like I said, at work confident, but I wouldn't ask for what I wanted. I wouldn't say what I needed. I was always, I just wanted them to like me. And
Same
I'm
thing.
like, it was
Ah,
totally the same theme. And
same
I
thing.
was settling for crumbs.
That's
And
right.
it was just a totally different attitude. And I think that has really, it's just made a huge difference to me. Like I'm just I approach things differently now.
It's amazing because you're living from your truth, from your essence. And it's
Yeah.
very typical that people make more money, they step into purpose. Everything gets better. We create boundaries. Everything gets better in life, which is better for you, better for your kids, better
Mhm.
for everyone. So tell us what's yummy about having him. Like what kinds of things do you do together?
Oh my gosh, everything I love because we love the same things. Um, Gosh, I mean, if you've seen my Facebook
Oh
posts,
gosh.
and he likes to travel like I do. So we've been to Greece. He took me on Greece. Here's the difference too, is I always felt like it wasn't like I would it like even though I wanted to be spoiled, I felt like that wasn't right for some
Right,
reason. I don't know,
right.
right?
Deserve it. Right.
Yeah,
That's
I didn't
right.
deserve it. Like I
Right.
would, I shouldn't want those things, right? And I'm like,
Right.
screw that. That is what I want. That is
Yes.
what, and I'm not going to apologize for wanting to be treated like I'm the prize. And, and it doesn't mean I'm going to be obnoxious or, about things or like, a, housewife from Orange County kind of person. But I found a person who is like, that's what I want to do. He's like,
Yes.
I want you, I want to do all these things for you and with you. And he's
Aw,
like, and that makes me happy. And I believed him because I'm like, well, I like to do things for you and that makes me happy and I don't want anything in return. Right. So I had to kind of,
okay.
so so we talked about bucket list things. And one of the things I wanted to do was go to Greece. And so
Oh,
he planned this whole super amazing trip for us. And
oh,
then we both love live music. I mean, we met at a show, right? Or at a festival. So we've been to lots of that since we've been together. And I love the outdoors and hiking, and so does he. And he has a place in Telluride in Colorado. So we go
Ooh,
out there and do all the hiking, and and he's really fit. And it's harder to, like I'm fit and I like to be really active. And at my age, somebody, a lot of the guys over 50 are not like that, right?
right, right.
And or they say they are, but they don't really enjoy actually doing all the things. And he does. And so he taught me how to play tennis. And
Woo!
so we've been playing tennis. And and also I was worried about him because he still lives in New York and I live in Austin. So it's not like we live in the same place. So I was worried about that initially, but I told him up front, like,
There you go.
this is a deal breaker. If you don't want to get married, and if you don't plan on coming and living in Austin until my kids are, because I'm not going to do this long distance thing for 6 years when my kids graduate, right?
Right.
Oh, I like that
That's
one.
a great picture. Where were you then?
At Austin at ACL, there's a music festival. It's in October. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, you've done so
Yeah.
much. Okay, so back to that. So you told him getting married is my dream, is my vision.
Yeah.
And what did he say?
It was really interesting because at first he was like, what? Because we had, and uh and he kind of said a lot of things. And I think because he was so taken aback, he says what's on his mind.
Yeah.
I think I surprised him. And so he said, like, everything kind of just came out of his mind. And a lot of it was just, I think, unloading about his previous marriage.
Yeah.
And but he came full circle and he's like, you know, he said, he actually said, he goes, I need to take some time and think about this. I'm not telling you I don't want to get married, but I want to give you a thoughtful answer. And it's like, I wasn't ready for that question.
That's right.
And so,
But
which
we
I
bring it up
appreciate.
right away. We talk about that, our vision right up front, what we
Mhm.
want.
And so
Yeah.
he came back the next day and he's like, I have thought about this. And he's like, I didn't think I wanted to get married because I hadn't really thought about even meeting someone. He's like,
Right.
then I met you. And then I didn't really think about like getting married because I was just so excited I was meeting you. And I just know that we're going to spend the rest of our lives together. So it wasn't really like I was thinking through, oh, we're going to get married. Like when you're younger, right? That's kind of like your path. But when you're older, we already have kids. We're not going to do these
Right.
things. He said, he goes, so I gave it some thought. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I do want to get married. And he goes, especially because you want to get married. And I was like, wait a second, you don't get to say that. And he's like, no.
Yeah.
He goes, no, I really and truly want to. That's why I wanted to take the time to think about it, because I didn't want to give you an answer that I knew would make you happy. I wanted to give you a really authentic answer. And I wanted to know that it was coming from my heart and that I truly had thought about it. And so, yeah. So, yeah, he wants to get married. I want to get married. We want to marry each other, not just get married.
That's right. You're
And
choosing each other. You're choosing each other. That's similar to what happened with my husband. He wasn't necessarily, he was relationship oriented,
Mhm.
but the vision I presented was, yes, I want that. I want you. I want to do this. I want this life. It's based on values and
Mhm.
a vision
And
and connection.
previously, I didn't think I ever wanted to get married again. I was like, yeah, I'll just date somebody and we can grow old together and everything. And then I thought about it a lot because of, working with you. And I'm like, do I really want to get married or not? And then I thought, no, I really do. It's really important to me.
Yeah,
And I think I was just too afraid because
that's
I want them to like me, right? I was too
right.
afraid to make that statement. And it's a bold, bold thing to say early on, or at
That's
least
right.
I felt like it was. And I
Right.
think many people do because we don't want to scare them off. It's like totally backwards. All the stuff that I learned was so backwards from what anyone else would tell you, like, oh, don't say too much too soon. Oh,
Right.
act like, like I remember like back in the day, it was like, well, don't eat. My mom, I remember going out on a date a long time ago. And my mom, we went to a place for steak and she's like, I said, yeah, I ordered this filet and it was so great. And I ate the whole thing. She's like, you ate all of that food? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, in front of your date? I'm like, yeah, it was
Yeah.
delicious. I'm not gonna pretend like I don't eat a lot because then they're never gonna feed me. But like it just kind of one of that advice of like, oh, don't. my friends were just like, you said what? And I said,
That's
yeah,
what we do.
if they're not gonna, if I'm not living in my truth and being myself and telling them what I need and want, I'm not gonna get it.
You're not going to get it.
And that was the big thing. That was such a huge thing that I had to, like, I knew, but I needed to have the confidence. And that's why I would always say to myself, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. And
That's
I'd be
right.
like,
And if
hey,
and
you
if he
can't.
and if he wasn't that and he didn't want that, then that would have been fine too, because you would
Exactly.
have continued on to find the one who did lean in and who did want that,
Yep. And
right?
it was amazing because he did lean in. And then I was like, oh my gosh, that's never happened before.
That's right.
Like, it
And
just doesn't cause a fight. It doesn't, like, it was a grown-up conversation, and it was a little like parts of it, because it brought up other things. So parts of it were uncomfortable because it was things we had to address, but we ended up in a really great place, and we ended up better for it, you know.
oh, that's
Yeah,
right. You're choosing each other. And as far as being like a dad and a model to your kids, how does that feel?
amazing, amazing. Because he's just a really, I mean, like, how I would say, like, he's a man, meaning like because he's perfect for me, but he has the same values as me. He wants the same things as me, and he's really authentically himself also. And so he's very self-aware and confident in who he is, because he's in alignment with his own value. Like, there's no misalignment.
And he has kids too. And how old are his kids?
21 and 17.
Nice. So he's already dad oriented.
Yeah, and he's been like the single dad, had the kids full time for the past several years. So the two of us, like, we kind of had a similar situation. So he understood my situation. He wasn't frustrated with it. And we just talked about early on, like, what that plan would be. Because he's like, you're my soulmate. I want to spend my entire, the rest of my life with you. I'm like, okay, well, what does that look like? Does it look like this? Because that's what I want to do. And he's like, yeah. So yeah, so we have because it's long distance is kind of weird. But we've worked it out where in some ways it's been great, because when we talk, it's very intentional, right? It's not just like when you're together and you're passing, and so our 20-minute conversation is a very intentional conversation. It's not about schedules and things like that. And we recently talked about that, how important that was to keep that
Yeah.
when we are in the same place. But he comes out now, like, he's committed. And I was concerned because I said long distance is not great, and he's like, nope. He came back the next week and he goes, I heard your concern, I have a plan. And so I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. There's not going to be 1 month that goes by where we don't see each other, and that will be at minimum.
At minimum,
At
right.
minimum. And then that's when times are busy. But he's like, but beyond that, he's like, as soon as my son graduates, which is like, he's going to graduate this May, he's like, he goes, I'll be able to come out there and stay, for extended periods.
That's
So,
right.
and
And
then,
then ultimately,
yeah, and then ultimately we'll be together. We'll be able to move to Telluride, to Colorado.
oh, that's going to be really sweet. I could just see you guys skiing and super active.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, it's
With
beautiful.
horses, you'll love this. He has a huge ranch, and so
Ooh.
we were talking about how, because I've always had a dream that I like camping, and I
Mm.
want to go on a road trip, right? I just want to be like, I wanted to have a motorhome or a trailer and drive it all around the country and just go wherever I wanted to go.
That's like
And
us. Yeah.
yeah, he's like, oh, I didn't know you did that. And he's like, me too, right? And so we had this whole conversation about it. And so now we're like, okay, we're gonna get an Airstream and we're gonna do these things.
Yay. So
Yeah,
you
but
guys have to come here.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh, totally. But he also loves animals. And I grew up in the country and I love animals too. And he grew up with horses. I didn't, but I love horses. And so when we get there, we'll be able to get the horses, and then have he has dogs, I have dogs and cats and all the things. So we'll have a whole lot of animals.
whole zoo, right? Like we do, rescue and
And chickens and the whole
chicken.
thing. Yeah, he
Oh,
has chickens already. I'm like, oh, I can't have chickens at my house, but I would.
our dogs would chase them. So, Lori, what do you want people to know who are listening and watching about making the changes and investing in themselves to have their soulmates? What do you want them to know?
I would say you have to know that you're worth it. And this is by far the best investment you could ever make because it's in yourself. And I think a lot about my future self and what my future self would say to my current self.
Right.
And my future self always tells me, like, don't worry about it. It's going to work out. But you need to do the work. There's no shortcut.
Shortcut. That's
No
right.
shortcut. Um, this was, I wouldn't say a shortcut. I think it was just like, if you want to get in shape, you go to a trainer. If you want to learn something, you go to a teacher. If you want to, you go to the person who's going to help and guide you through it all. And I think that that was why it was such a good investment, because I could have wasted another 10 years,
Oh
you
God.
know,
I know.
and still not came
And
up.
and still not. And
Or
still
worse, he could have messaged me and we could have talked and we could have even seen each other and we could have even gotten together. But then I wouldn't have had the tools
right.
to
Oof.
really appreciate and build a relationship. I would have been still stuck being that little girl that I was before. And that there's no words to, like, you can't really put a number on that one, but it was, there's no way. I just didn't want to have that life again. And it would, I'm sure it would not have turned out this way if I wouldn't have done that work. And so, it was scary, but growth is, I mean, like,
Growth is.
you
Right.
don't get to the other side of something without going through a little bit of the muck and the storm. And also, I think that because you go through that,
Yeah.
you really value and appreciate where you end up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we always say there's no growth without stretching,
There's
right?
not.
And from having been divorced twice and having been in all these shitty relationships and knowing the toll it's taken on us, you really do appreciate it so much. You'll
Mhm.
always appreciate him and the life that you have and the difference it's going to make for the love you're going to model for your kids.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly. And I
oh,
want them to see, because that's how we make our relationships, is watching our parents. And that was my biggest fear. It's like, I'm just gonna be alone. So being able to model that to them is a big, huge deal to me.
totally. Totally. Oh, well, Lori, I'm so excited for you. So excited. And I really want to acknowledge you. You showed up and you did the work. You really did it. You were always right there, doing it, showing up, participating. And you got the love. You got the guy.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh,
And I got some great friends in our group. Like,
right.
I still talk to some of them, and that's part of it too, is just having that support, with someone like, and you can laugh about stuff too.
Totally. Oh my God. Right. We laugh a lot in that. We're celebrating, we're laughing, we're like, oh my God, was that me? Right.
Yeah. Well, and knowing that I'm not going to have, like, I used to have these ridiculous dates back in the day before meeting you, and laughing about those things, knowing that it's never going to happen again.
Never gonna happen. People say that to me all the time about will I meet the same? Of course you won't. Lori's different. Her vibration went up. Her clarity went up. Her communication skills went up. She knew her value. It was not bullshit anymore. Oh, I'm worthy. No. So it's not. It will never happen again because our reality changes. The world is the same, but our world isn't. And
Mhm.
healthy men are out there. Healthy women are out there. But we have to tap in. It's not, oh, it'll happen when it happens, or I'm a good person. We were always a good person, but we were
Mhm.
doing it wrong with the
Yeah, and
whole
the people, they weren't bad people, right?
no,
They just
no.
weren't the right people for me. But I really believe that when you it's hard to make the decision sometimes to put the effort into yourself, because there's always something else that's more important, especially with
Always
kids,
something.
right? It's like, oh, I have to do this for kids. I have to be there for the kids. And so we don't always pay attention to our own needs. And that is really reverse of what you should be doing, because if we don't pay ourselves first, we don't have anything to give out, right? If you think about it like money, like if it's a bank, if I'm not putting money in my bank, how can I pay that out to other people? And if you don't put, you're always working at a deficit, right? So you're always kind of on credit and on loan with everyone else, which makes you, short-tempered, resentful, and all these things. And putting the time and effort into myself, really, like, that was an investment. And that investment in myself now is going to pay out all the time. It's like when you have an investment that grows in value over time because of the equity, like if it's a house, right? The equity you're getting out of it, that it's just going to grow and grow. And that's why I always say it's scary, but we all have it in us, to do it. The scary part really isn't the doing part. The scary part is the thinking about it part.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Because you're investing in a program, but it's not the program, it's the outcome. It's who you get to be. It's the life you get to live. Right. And it's yeah, it's pretty special. And I love how it impacted you at work, with your kids, with travel, and meeting your soulmate.
And I still talk to myself in the mirror.
I love it. That is so great because you're such a great student. Oh, Irina, Lori, thank you so much for joining and for sharing so
Thank you.
candidly yourself. You're so generous and wonderful, and you deserve to be loved. You deserve to have everything that you want, truly.
I
Oh,
do.
there you go. And I'm excited to be with you and watch it all unfold.
Thank
Oh,
you.
okay. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much. If anyone has questions or anything, please post below. And yeah. All right, Lori.
All right,
Bye.
thanks.